Okay. Um, Welcome everyone on YouTube and Facebook Live to this the first live streamed episode of the Field Trip podcast. Today, the Field Trip podcast is a podcast about the future of commercial real estate, the future of law, and everything in between. And I reckon today we've probably got someone who fits more in the everything in between section. So our guest today is Tim Franklin. Tim, I will let him explain who he is because he's a fascinating person in a minute. But he's a lawyer and an athlete and a whole lot of other things. And he's done some very interesting things whilst in quarantine, and he's got some very interesting and bold plans for the future. So I was really looking forward to getting him on and having a chat with him about that today. Before I throw to Tim, if the people who are watching us live at the moment can perhaps just give us a quick comment to let us know that we're coming through okay with our audio. I'm expecting, because we're battling Lego Masters tonight, my kids are hating me because I'm not sitting down watching it with them. Probably some pretty heavy streaming. The live feed might be a bit laggy, so just if anything's not going right at your end, we're doing our best here, but do let us know in the comments. We've got keeping an eye on those, and we want to make sure we do things as well as we can in that regard. Just want to fix my autofocus here. Right. Okay, Tim, thanks for coming after that introduction. Thanks for joining us. In 1 minute or less, for people who don't know about you, tell us about who you are and what you do. Okay, all right. 30 seconds then. Oh, people are saying that they can't hear you, Tim. Just hold on a second. Let's. No, just sorry. Thank you for those making those comments. Just bear with us. All right, Tim, let's try that again. I'll be able to. Tim? No, just hold on. No, just hold up a second. Sorry, everyone. Just bear with us with. Okay, try that again. Tim? No. Sorry, just hold up, Tim. It's a setting issue. You can see we're technical experts at this end. Tim, try again. I think I've got you now.
And as I was saying, right.
Okay, Maroochydore
Is that
represent.
good? Can
This
you hear me?
guy's 100%. I think you're right, Jesse. Can everyone hear Tim now? Just someone throw us a comment.
I suppose it would probably help if I said something.
We might keep going. I'm seeing your audio come through here now, so I think that should be fine. I'm sure
Right. Okay.
someone will yell at us if that's not. Yep.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Patty,
Thanks, Pat.
Patty Doyle has just said, "Yep."
Okay. Sorry.
So yeah, as I suppose I'll start.
Start again.
I'll start at the start again. So, I am Brisbane based. Have been pretty well my whole life, save for a couple of jaunts to other places around Australia, and I've been lucky enough to travel internationally for work. As a career, as a profession, I left school and started studying the law, finished my law degree, and became a corporate lawyer for a number of years. And in that time, I lived what was probably in the formative stages of that, quite a sedentary and unhealthy lifestyle. made a few poor choices around that. And then one day I went for a run, and it was terrible. But I fell in love with it. I fell in love with with how challenging it was. That was probably 15 years ago now. And since that day, I probably haven't stopped running, and fell into more endurance sports as well, such as long course triathlon. And then from there, I really wanted people to experience the transition that I had taken. So moved more into a coaching role, so to speak, just as a hobby, again, a passion. And then the opportunity came up a couple of years ago where I could move more permanently into making the coaching side of things more of a career. So I've sort of now been, over the last 24, 36 months, been balancing my legal career with the transition into a more full-time coaching career. And during that, I've still been concentrating on my own athletic endeavors, so to speak.
And I mean, the thing that's I found interesting in, because you've explained that to me a few times now, and this idea of your transition from being not an athlete or not a great athlete into someone that does, that is pretty intense and pretty competitive. So what did that look like? Were you into sports at school, or were you just really not in that game at all, and then all of a sudden decided this is something I need to do?
Yeah, that's probably the question I get the most, specifically because when people look at me now, they probably see someone that's relatively fit and lean, and that probably, it's like the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, of what's gone before me to get me here. I love sport, always have. As a kid growing up, my parents always pushed myself and my siblings to play sport, to be active. And then sort of halfway through high school, I probably lost my way. So I was a cricketer, a rugby union player, played a little bit of Aussie rules as a kid as well. And generally just turned my hand to everything. I was in the basketball. If there was basketball, I was playing tennis. And then halfway through high school, I got injured and stopped. So all that endorphin release, I suppose, of playing a sport, never to a high level. I was always last in a running race. So I was never a great athlete, but just loved the endeavor of it, and then stopped and replaced exercise basically with food, is what it felt like. And then replaced food with probably grog, and then it was terribly unhealthy for probably 10 years, probably from the age of 16-ish through to mid 20s. And that's when I started going, and I always recall my first ever triathlon was the Noosa triathlon, in 2004, 2005. And of the 78 participants that I was racing against, I came 74th, and there were 3 people that didn't finish.
Right.
So, I mean, I was second last across the line. And it just went from there. Like, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. So then I challenged myself to do more, and that's all where it started.
Yeah. What was there? I mean, I'm interested. Was there a catalyst there? Was there something specific that made you change course, or was it really just, I'll go and have a run, and you really enjoyed it and it just built from there and almost unintentionally got you to where you are?
Yeah, there's probably a couple of things. Like, again, people have asked me what was the light bulb moment to sort of stop the trajectory I was going, and move a different way. And one of the ones was, there was always a desire, I suppose, to be fit. I'd always seen the sports on TV, and especially around the Ironman triathlon back in the mid to late 90s. And over in Hawaii, and I thought that's something I'd really love to give a crack.
Welch.
And Mark Allen, and then into Greg Welch, so Greg Welch was a huge sort of inspiration of mine. And then I'm sitting 2002, 2003 in university saying, I'd love to do the Hawaiian Ironman one day, and I've got a cigarette in one hand and a beer in the other. you know, where I was mentally wasn't necessarily marrying up with what I was doing practically. So the catalyst, I guess, was I had read an article about a mum whose son had passed away in a car accident, and she said the hardest thing that a parent has to do is bury their own child, and that somewhat resonated, I suppose, with me.
Yeah.
That geez, my parents have given me everything, you know, all through the grief that I probably put them through. They're always there. I talk about how lucky I am all the time, and I'm lucky to be born to probably two of the greatest people on the planet. And they did everything for me. And the last thing I wanted to do was for them to have to bury me in that respect. So that was probably a point in time. I mean, I didn't read that article, go out the next day for a run, but it got me thinking that, no, come on, Timbo, you can be better than this.
That's interesting. I went through a similar path, not reaching nearly the heights, obviously, that you do, but there's a history of heart disease on my dad's side, and I sort of take in that line, it would appear, and he and his brothers and his dads have either all had heart attacks or died from them. And I went through a period, not so much with booze, but just with working ridiculously, where, you know, you just lose sight of that. You always have in your head that activity is going to be something that you'll come back to, and you realise you're 30, and in the words of my wife, you're a fat bastard, and there's something you really need to be doing about that. Not as dramatic a change from my part, but it's interesting that you say that my personal motivation isn't the same as yours in that respect, but certainly coming from the same place. And I'm sure that there's your own self-preservation is a factor in that as well. I'm interested though, that's like your story, sort of my story from a different angle. That can't be an uncommon thing in the circles that you mix. How much of that do you see in the people that you come across through your coaching, and what impact does your story have on them?
Yeah, I guess it is not an uncommon story to hear. If you went to any start line of any triathlon anywhere in the world, it would be more often than not a corporate individual that was sedentary for a long time, and was moving into an unhealthy place, that decided to get fit. And a triathlon gives you a very specific goal in which to train for. So absolutely, my journey is not one of a kind. I mean, mine's a very, very easy journey. I just made some terrible mistakes of my own accord. I wasn't ever dealt a bad hand by any stretch of the imagination. I just came to a few forks in the road and seemed to zig when I should have zagged, I suppose. But yeah, it's absolutely a common story. I see it all the time, and my great hope and motivation is that people that are moving in that direction see someone like me. Like I see a lot of me in a lot of people I coach, and I love it. I mean, it keeps getting me out of bed. The guys in my triathlon squad, you know, unbeknownst to them, keep me driving every single day because of what they have to go through. And they've had to go through a lot more than what I've had to go through. They might be, you know, single parents trying to raise two kids and work a full-time job and do whatever else is required, and then fit in training on top of that. I mean, I don't have any of that burden. So for me to do it is relatively easy when I compare myself to that. And so, yes, I mean, a lot of my clients are in that predicament where they have neglected movement for such a period of time, where it's just got hard. Like, where do I start? How do I start? And that's me having lived that and moved through that process. I can empathize with it. I think a lot of it is intimidating for someone to start, because where the hell do you start?
Yeah.
And that is something that I pride myself on, is that I was there. I mean, it's some time ago now, but I was there, and I'm still on that journey. There's still an unhealthy guy inside me that I'm still battling, I suppose.
An interesting perspective. You're touching on it there about the juggling of these different priorities, and you're sort of looking at the people, you know, that you coach and comparing them to yourself. I mean, everyone has to juggle different things in life. You've got an interesting and fairly intense mix of things. How do you juggle those different elements, and what wins? Like, you know, life is a question of compromise. What do you find is the thing you do? What's the thing you do the most? What's the thing that comes out first? Talk to me about the juggle, but then tell me about prioritizing.
That is a great question. And a hugely personal question. You could ask 1,000 people that exact question, and how they balance would be completely different. And have I got it right? Have I got the right balance? Absolutely not. No way. For me, that it was the career or the movement to start with.
Yeah.
Did my career progression suffer because I chose to train more? Yes. Did the people, have relationships that I've been in suffered because I've chosen movement? Absolutely. And do I regret that? Absolutely. But movement is what I am. It is how I would define myself. And I don't want that to struggle. So I guess for me, my priority is movement. Now that's changing as I get a little bit older. I suppose I'm moving into, well, I love it. I want to keep doing it, but how can I balance that with other stuff in life that's important? You know, like having a partner and potentially having a family, and what does my career look like post all this exercise? Because although I think you can run forever, I'm also conscious of at what level can I run forever. And then that's, and at the moment, my balance is probably a bit skewed, but I love it, you know, and it's who I am. It's what makes me the person that I am at this point in time. And that is that positive person that people, I'm hoping, want to be around.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and that they.
No, sorry, keep going.
Oh, I was just going to say, and that they see that, and I'm also a big believer in don't make up bullshit excuses as to why you can't. Yeah, it's too easy. It's too easy for someone there to say, "Oh, I'm busy, I can't do it." Well, that's nonsense. Like, it's 24 hours in a day. You sleep 6 to 8 of them. You know, put down the cat videos on your Facebook, or don't watch a shitty television show. Move, do something. And I think it's just a people just use it as a cop out, you know, and that's fine. And what I say is to my athletes is, if you miss a session, that's fine. Don't go chasing it, or don't feel guilty, as long as the reason you missed it added value to your life. So did you miss a session so you could hang out with your kids? Absolutely, missed the session. Yeah. Did you miss a session because you took your wife out or your husband out and you went out to the art gallery or saw a ballet that you'd wanted to see? Then absolutely do that. That's adding value. Yep. But don't just go, oh, I'm a little bit tired, I'm going to watch Lego Masters on television. Yep. You know, what value add is that to your life? And that's all I would. That's, I hope the kids didn't hear that in the background, but that's probably the premise that I live by. Just don't say I can't because I'm too busy. It's just this, busy is a word I hate. I really hate it. Everyone's got a hectic lifestyle. It's a horrible response to a question, isn't it?
I've got to say, when when you say to someone, how are you going? And most people we deal with in a work context, when their first response is, oh, busy, busy, I think I have the same reaction as you. It doesn't tell you a whole lot, and probably says a bit more about them than otherwise. No, I mean that's an interesting thing. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it is a question of choices. It's I have this idea of, everything's about opportunity cost. Making one choice by definition means that you've made a choice not to do something else when you're doing it. And like you're touching on there, mindfully make decisions. If you want to spend your time with the kids, that's fine. You've made that choice, and it's a great choice. But I think being mindful of that and cutting out the BS on the excuse side is a good thing as well. I'm interested to understand the progression of your legal career and how that's evolved. Perhaps what you had in your head when you started, and how that's changed, and what you're thinking about now as sort of a mid-career lawyer.
Yeah, I can't say that 15, 17 years ago when I was sitting in constitution law in second year uni that I would be 15 years later juggling or balancing a legal career with that of a triathlon coach. Not in a million years would I have thought that. I thought that it would just be, I would finish uni, I would go in, I'd do my articles or PLT, I think it was, by the time I got there. And then you would just work up, as a lawyer into an associate, into a senior associate, into a partner. And that was what life was. That's what we're taught. That's what all it's really spoken about.
Absolutely, it
when
is.
You're in the annals of a university campus, I suppose. But mine took my career took a pretty interesting turn relatively early on into it. I was lucky enough to work at I shouldn't say just a mid-tier law firm here in Brisbane, and had two great mentors. They taught me a lot. They taught, and not just the law, but work ethic as well. They were very, very disciplined and studious and conscientious workers, which was really great to see and see how that added value. But they also showed me that there's more to being a lawyer than just the law. So it was the ability to communicate with people, don't just say no or whatever, but find the solution more so than just regurgitate something that's written in a textbook or in a piece of legislation.
So who were they, Tim? I mean, you've talked them up. You might as well give them a shout out.
Oh yeah, so I might as well give them a shout out. So that was my partner and my mentor at McInnes Wilson. So that was Chris Davis was the partner, and Taryn Hartley was my mentor when I first started. So that was a great learning. And the people I've met there, I mean, that's one thing that I really cherish about doing it, and everything I've done is the people that I've come across, and I don't know if we're going to touch on it later, but just about the positive influence that we have had, or they have had on me, and hopefully that's been reciprocated. So I did that for a number of years.
And do you have an ongoing connection
with
with them? You're still in touch with them?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Probably Taryn in particular. Taryn actually trains in the Tri Squad. And also Chris, we catch up every now and then. So I haven't burnt too many bridges along the way, I hope. And then from there I moved to a boutique industrial relations practice, which is actually my father was a late bloomer in the law as well. I think him and I were pretty well studying at the same time. I went and worked with him for a couple of years, and then I moved in-house. So I've been in-house. I was in-house for about 8 years, and loved it. Loved the commercial side of it and the practicality of it, to move away from the law is the law is the law. So I moved away from that. And then most recently in the last 2 to 3 years, I went out and have been practicing just on my own.
Yep.
Just to give me that flexibility and that freedom to allow me to at least have a crack at what is a passion and hopefully become a vocation in the coaching and speaking side of things.
Just to pick up on your sort of the time of practicing by yourself, where sort of in a more of a freelance kind of style, as I understand it, have you seen, like, a lot is changing in the legal profession at the moment, and the way that legal services are provided is becoming sort of more varied. Have you seen in the time that you've been doing things a change? I mean, it sort of sounds like you're aligning with the trend that's happened, but even in the last few years when you've been doing it, are you seeing a rapid change in how things are evolving?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a shift away from bricks and mortar law, I suppose, and how client engagement and client services can be provided more expeditiously, cheaper, and more personally. I think the client experience is becoming far more important, and how that's delivered. And obviously, the tech space has and will, I assume, continue to progress at a rapid rate, and that adds a lot of value, I suppose. If you're up to it, it adds a lot of value to that client experience, and that's, for me, I think that's the most important thing, because I've been both the lawyer and the consumer, so the client as well, of legal work, and I think that personal service is really, really important. That always will be important for me. I'm not so sure it'll be important for the market in its totality. People might just want the answer, but for me, I want that level of care.
Yes.
So I think it's that balancing. There's that balancing of the both.
Yep.
But I think the days of the draconian law firm are probably not numbered, but I even think you'll see the really big players. Well, you see them moving and shifting and realigning their values to providing services in unique and different ways.
Yeah, I think your point about sort of the personal aspect of the law, or any profession, actually is going to become more important. Software is making a lot of, is and will continue to replace, not just enhance, but replace work that traditionally has been done. Lawyers have been, I would sort of skeptically say, lawyers for many years have been paid to be, highly trained and incredibly intelligent administrators. To a large extent, it's an information management game, and software does that quite well. But what comes out of that is those that can recognise and deliver that enhanced human aspect of, whether it be legal services or medicine or any profession. I think there's a big future in that. I don't think as many people can do it as lawyers are currently doing things, just because software will have such an impact. But I think if you're angling that direction, that's a safe way to be travelling. And do you have a hope that you can continue to practice, as an adjunct to these other things that you're doing? Is that, I know you can't say exactly what the future will look like, but is that a future that you'd welcome?
Good question, because I don't know who's listening. Yeah, absolutely. Like, one thing I do like about the law is, just put me in front of a bus there, Alistair. Thanks for that. Ultimately, the short answer is no. I would like to move away from the law in such a way that's sustainable, where I can be doing the coaching and the public speaking and whatever that may look like, the goal setting programming that I'm really, really passionate and want to pursue, to see where that can take me. But I also really do enjoy the element of the law where I get to work with smart people make difficult decisions that can assist. In the last few years, myself, when I've gone out and practiced, I suppose I've really focused on the employment relations space because I love it. Again, it's like coaching. I love the personal touch that it has. It actually means something. It's not just necessarily making a rich person richer. It's actually means something to individuals.
That's interesting. Do you think if you'd have landed in a different area of law, you may not have hung around as long? I
don't think so, because I didn't go into.
I was going to say, I ended up I'm in real estate, and that was, if I'm honest, it's because the firm that I was at had a great property team, and I enjoyed going there, and I just happened then, whether it's the nature of the work or that I just got to know it well and became good at it by virtue of the fact that I did a lot of it, that you then like it. Like you like the thing that you become good at because you've done a lot of it. But if I could do the whole thing again, would I do the same? Maybe not. But sounds to me like this area of law and having a good understanding of different areas of commercial practice where you couldn't say the same thing about most other departments in a typical commercial law firm.
Yeah, I guess so. It sounds. I mean, that's arguably like a Stockholm syndrome, where.
Well, for me, not for you.
But
so you're
fine.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, whereas I mean, even when I wasn't in the HR space, when I first graduated, I wasn't in the HR, the industrial relations space. What I fell in love with were the people that I got to go and see every day.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever was in love with the law. Again, I don't know what this is going to be when people listen to it, but I love going to work because of the people I got to see every day, who are now some really close mates of mine across the various jobs that I've had in my legal career. It was always about those interpersonal relationships for me, as opposed to arguably the end result that I was providing. I still did it to the best of my ability, and I'd like to think that I'm a very reasonably solid practitioner. But for me, there wasn't that love affair with it that you do see within the vocation.
Well, I mean, good on you for pursuing things outside of that, because a lot of people sort of go a whole career without doing that. You spoke about your because you've spoken about your exercise or your sort of your movement focus in roundabout terms. You've mentioned that you have a triathlon squad and there's a coaching element. You touched then on the motivational speaking side of things. Tell me a bit about what it is that you do now currently and what you'd like to see that become.
So what I do now, how I split my time is that I am the head coach and operator of Tri Nation triathlon training, which is an age group based tri squad here in Brisbane. I also coach cross country at Brisbane Girls Grammar and and part of their athletics coaching team. And in my time at Girls Grammar, they have been really passionate about working with me, and we've developed what I call a Run Fit program. I think I'm going to change the name to Fun Fit, because I think Run Fit, the word run can scare people. So we're changing it to and that's just a movement-based program that's not for structured sport, and my hope is that captures the people that have fallen outside of the structured sport or PE program that are out of school, so they get to embrace what movement is and what movement did for me, and what it can do for people. And then I'm also lucky enough to work with some football teams. So up at Maroochydore, the Australian Football Club up there, the Aussie Rules team up at Maroochydore. I worked there a couple of years ago when I was living up there, and I'm lucky enough to be back working with them. And also I work with the Coorparoo Aussie Rules team as well, just in their fitness campaign. Again, just because I enjoy the camaraderie, so for what I do, it's very individual, and triathlon is arguably very individual, but what I like to bring to the table is to make it fun, and to make it a team sport, so that everyone there is in it together, and they're working hard, and they're really supporting, and being positive about not only their endeavor, but the endeavor of people around them.
Yep.
I've got a very strict, what I like to call like a very strict no dickhead policy.
Yep.
Because I want people to be a part of that team and really embrace what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose for me, that's the part of my life that I'd love to grow, and see where that can go. I don't want it to explode into huge numbers, because again, I want to keep that really personal nature touch to it. So where someone walks through the door, they're not just member number 2475, but they're Joe Citizen, this is his job. He's a CEO. He's an accountant. He has 2 kids. His wife's lovely. His wife's come and she's done our beginner course, and she's embracing the squad. That's my ultimate aim. I never did it. I never left the law to make millions in coaching. I left the law to become a coach so that people can learn from my mistakes,
right,
and what I did wrong, and follow the same journey that I did, because holy moly, it's taken me to places and introduced me to people that I would never in a million years have ever met.
And is that so it's when you talk about motivational speaking, that's at a more micro level, or is there there's no shortage of voices in the corporate sphere talking about these issues, and the concept of movement or absence of movement in the workplace, it's real, and it's fairly high profile. Is that a potential avenue for you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I run a goal-setting program now called Own Your Own Show, which I have rolled out to a few organisations and been lucky enough to be engaged by a number of companies around Australia and around the world to come and talk to them and work with them around their own personal accountability. We spoke earlier about people making excuses, or just a general, I suppose, in society there feels like there's a general lack of accountability. That may be harsh, that may be unfair, but so the premise of Own Your Own Show is to just grab whatever you want to do, and set a meaningful plan to achieve that goal. And I always talk about goals being big, hairy, and audacious. So I really want them to scare and put a little bit of fear into you, so that you can, or want to, or are motivated to take it. And I really want that motivation to be intrinsic. We talk about motivational speaker. I don't necessarily use that term. Like whilst it rolls off the tongue, my goal or my aim is for it to be more aspirational. So I want to get up, work with a group, and them to go, I don't want to be better. I don't want to be better because Tim inspired me, or blah, blah, blah inspired me. I want them to go, I aspire to be better. I mean, I want it to be an intrinsic motivator.
It's an interesting distinction you draw, though. And I would say I applaud the absence of rah-rah in that kind of thing, because I think that gets a bit too much. But how many people do you think, you just said that you don't think people, or you hope people aren't going to be inspired by you, but how many people around you are inspired by what you do? Because you are, I don't know you as well as many people who are sitting listening to this, who I know are people that you coach, and you have that kind of arrangement with them. Maybe a few of them could throw a comment on. I'm sure they'll back me up. But from what I see in you in the shorter time that I've gotten to know you, you're the kind of person, you do things, you walk the walk, and there isn't a whole lot of talk around that, and that in itself is a motivating factor. Do you see that? Do you not try and do that because you don't want to talk yourself up? Because I see that.
Well, I think if you ask the people listening, or my mates, I think my number one topic is me to talk about, but you
don't do it in a way.
Yeah,
yes
I think.
Tim. I mean, again, I don't know you as they know you, but from what I've seen, you do talk about what you do, but you don't talk about yourself. If that distinction sort of makes sense.
Yeah, I guess all I see is that I do what I do because I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I do what I do because I'm fortunate enough to be able to.
Yeah.
I see, and I wasn't doing that. I was taking it for granted. And then you go and run past, and I've been lucky enough to work, and do charity events where I'm coming up with guys that are suffering from, multiple sclerosis, or they're wheelchair bound, or they're amputees, or whatever's happened, and they don't have the ability to do it. So I want to do it because I'm lucky that I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm lucky that I can afford to do it.
Yeah.
So I do it for those reasons. And do I know that it may inspire someone else to do it? Most in recent times, yes. I think before that, no. What I do pride myself on is the work ethic around the training, and that I am not the most talented athlete out there, but I'm the one that's willing, or at least one of the ones that's willing to go the deepest, train the hardest, prioritize it the most, so I can stand on a start line and look at everyone and say, I don't care if you're better than me naturally, but I've trained harder than you. And because of that, I'm more likely to have a better outcome. And that's probably the premise that I take and want to use with whatever that goal is that you have. It's that hard work beats talent.
Mm-hmm.
Every day of the week.
No, it's a great. It's a great message, and it the proof's there. So well done. I mean, congratulations. I think it's a great thing what you're doing, and it is, it's inspiring to watch. I want to switch tack a little bit. You've got a little bit of press during this quarantine period with a few interesting things that you've done, and you've also got some sort of you've got some quite lofty goals in the next year or two. I'm keen to understand those. Tell us about what you've done in quarantine.
Yeah, so it's actually been a lot of fun, and I think in that little video we put together as a bit of an advertisement to this, was that this quarantine period in its initial stages was really brutal. As I said, my whole world got flipped upside down.
Mm-hmm.
All my coaching just stopped in a 12-hour period. The government came out on a Sunday night and said, we're done. We're in lockdown as of tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So that initial first 1 or 2 weeks I was shell shocked. I think I may have slept 4 to 5 hours in 2 weeks, going, how am I going to afford to live? I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to pay rent, put food on the table, put petrol in my car. What is going on? And then once I got through that, and again, I lent on some, again, I always talk about lucky, but I lent on, I've got the greatest mates on the planet, and I lent on them heavy, and they were there for me every time I needed them. And I was vulnerable. And then I thought, well, Timbo, people are going to need you here as well. You need to step up. I want to be there. I want to be that guy that if someone's struggling, that they call. So a really good friend of mine, she saw someone had run a marathon around on their balcony over in France or something like that, because obviously France went into lockdown before we did, and my social circles know that I do these ultra endurance events, and they're like, well, she's like, oh, this is something you would probably do. So I thought, you know what, I am going to do that. I'm going to do that for a number of reasons, mainly around staying positive, sending a message that we can still be active, even though our routine's shot. All this has happened, we can still be active, we can still stay moving, and we can be positive. And with that, you know, if you're moving, then your mental health is going to be a whole lot better. So I set out in my, I think a real estate agent would call cozy apartment, in my small apartment
from the video that I
saw. So it was about 21 meter loop. So a friend of mine and I, we mapped it out, we measured it out so it was accurate, and then I ran a marathon within my apartment. So
how long did that take?
Just under 7 hours.
Just 7, okay. Right.
Just under 7 hours. So 6 hours and 46 minutes. And a lot of turns, a lot of tight turns, no real running. It was more of just a shuffle.
How were the ligaments and muscles in the days following? Because that's an unusual stress, running that kind of short path, I would have thought.
Yeah, I actually pulled up from that probably the best out of what I've subsequently named the ISO challenges that I've done. That was the one that it was never a run, so it was never physically taxing, save for my hips when I had to make sharp turns around the certain tables or a couch or something like that. But that was the first one I did, and that was probably early in this lockdown / isolation period. So that probably got the traction from the media. And then a few other people drip fed a few more ideas. So I think the second challenge I did was, there was a gentleman in England that reached out to me, and he had done a couple of things not dissimilar to what I'd done. And he said, oh, let's concurrently run up and down our stairs to the same elevation gain as if we ran from Everest Base Camp to Everest Summit, which is about 3,500 meters. So I started at 2 p.m. on a Saturday, so simultaneously with those guys over in England, and they started at 5 a.m. and we summited Everest together.
And how many flights of stairs was that, and how long did that one take you?
Yeah, so that one was comfortably the most brutal. That one was 161 times I climbed up my apartment block, which is 8 levels.
Right.
And then I had to obviously come back down the stairs as well. So it was
that harder?
It was about 35,500 stairs.
Was the going down harder?
No. The going down was actually a relief.
Okay.
By sort of, I think the quads were my quads and calves were shot.
Yeah.
I probably didn't do anywhere near enough training for that endeavor.
You should have done it a few times. Yeah. Worked your way up to it. I should have.
Yeah, I should have done something. And then just getting over for the subsequent days, my calves and quads I could hardly walk with any proper gait. And what I did notice was my toes, because by the 100th plus trip to the top, I was just kicking the lip pretty much of every step. But that was brutal. That took just over 6 hours, but physically and mentally, because I was in my fire escape stairs, so that the view did not change. No, probably wasn't as pretty as going up Everest.
I doubt it. Was there another one? Like you just said, your ISO challenges.
Yeah,
just the two.
Yeah. No, there's been 4.
Okay.
So the third one was one that I actually did for charity. So another friend reached out and said, I don't know where he came up with the idea. He said, "Have you ever thought about pushing a wheelbarrow for a marathon?" And I was like, "No," because I don't think anyone's really thought of that.
Yep.
So that actually aligned with when I thought about doing that. That aligned with Anzac weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and my family and a lot of my friends are closely linked to the Defence Force and the Armed Forces in some respects.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did then is I reached out to Mates for Mates, which is a charity which looks after injured returned servicemen, and not just physical injuries, but something that's really close to me is that mental side of what movement can bring. So around and especially with this lockdown, it's very easy to say, you know, the struggles that people have, the importance of staying isolated. But what does isolation mean to people, especially people that live alone? You know, I'm one of those people. I live by myself, you know, and it's very flippant and easy thing to say that, you know, just spend time with your loved ones, just to embrace that time that you get home alone. But a lot of people, I don't think, realised that if you're in a abode solo for 24 hours, that can take its toll. So I wanted to do something there and touch those guys. So I actually just threw it out there that if anyone had any spare change, that either donate it or come down on the day and actually throw some money into my wheelbarrow that I was pushing. So that happened, and that was a really good day. And
I hope they went notes.
We managed. Yeah, I think I did specifically say nothing under at least a $1 or $2 coin, though.
Yep. I was thinking about the weight.
I didn't want everyone's ashtray. Yes, yeah, I didn't want everyone's ashtray, their coin tray in their car just being tipped into my wheelbarrow.
You need a little scanner.
I'm a lawyer.
I
don't push a barrow.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
well, I think some people would disagree with that. I think that's often the job of a lawyer. I mean, one thing I think a lot about is the impact of the pandemic and sort of the period of isolation that we're all experiencing or have experienced, and what impact that is going to have on the way we live in future. I'm keen to understand, like we have spoken a bit about this in the past, your coaching business. How much, I know you're doing a lot of stuff online, as a lot of people in the fitness industry are at the moment. How much of that do you think will stick when, touch wood, things go back to normal? I don't think they'll go back entirely to normal, but how much of that will stick? And perhaps also on the flip side of that, and you were touching on it just now, the idea of personal connection. Do you think there are some changes, hopefully positive changes, that come out of this time as a result of what we've experienced in isolation?
Yeah, I think there will be a shift both ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think that definitely some of the technology in that virtual space will increase. One thing I notice is a particular session that I do virtually works really, really well, whereas a lot of them don't.
Is that your spin session?
It doesn't. That's this. Yeah, that's the. Yeah, we do a wind trainer bike, like a bike studio session, and that's worked really, really well, because what it does do is it allows people to wake up in the morning and not have to, save them sort of 25 minutes, traveling in the morning in there and setting up. And then obviously on the other end of the session as well, getting home, getting ready and go to work. It does cut out a lot of that. And that has been from my end, a huge success. And it's allowed people, we've had people dialing in from Canada, Japan, Sydney, sort of all over the world to join, which has been awesome, right?
Are they new people,
unfathomable.
Or people that you've known in the past?
They're not. A couple of them are new, and a couple of them are members that have moved away for work or for personal reasons.
Yep.
So a mixture. It's actually brought some people to the squad that weren't members previous to the to the pandemic hitting.
Yep.
So
so
from that end, I think there's a space for virtual.
Yeah. So you think that kind of thing will stick around even when you're able to run those sessions in person again?
Yeah, I think what may happen is that the offering changes. So I offer both.
Mm-hmm.
I offer the ability for people to dial in, but also offer people the ability to attend the session. Because one thing that is a common theme is the people connection.
Yes.
People are really missing that, and it's great. Like so I think we all too often take it for granted. Oh, I can do that at any time, until such things as, you don't know what you've got until it's gone. So I think the personal connection and the ability to come and be together is hugely important. I think you could see that over the last 48 hours here in Queensland, in Brisbane. I've been out for runs, and I've never seen so many groups of 9 people together, like that have just embraced the ability to get together again. And I love that. I really love it. I'm hoping that people are sensible with it, but I love it. And I'm hoping that part of it, that people don't take it for granted, that people don't take personal relationships for granted, that people don't take movement for granted, that they go, you know what? I haven't done something in a while. I saw this weird guy run around his apartment during it. I might reach out to him and see what he can do for me. Ultimately that would be, most selfishly, that's something that I would like, but that is what, well, if he can do that, well, what can I do? Or this Bruce that I work with, he was big and then he got fit and now he's doing this. Maybe I could go and join him and see what that's all about. And that's my big hope. And my big hope is that there were so many people moving during this pandemic, because it was their one reason or excuse, if you will, to go outside. Was to go for a walk. And it doesn't have to be stupid like running a marathon, pushing a wheelbarrow. It can literally be a walk around the block. But just exercise, movement is so important. I mean, every health professional on the planet says that. Not just some lawyer from Brisbane saying it, so the advantages of it. So from that end, that's what I hope comes out of it, is that people don't take that for granted. That would be for me the most valuable lesson that we could take out of it. Say for the tech side, the virtual stuff, whatever that is, I just want people to understand and cherish the ability to move.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I live in a more suburban area than where you do. You're a little bit more built up. And one thing we've noticed around here is more people out and about walking, more people inclined to say hello to people in their neighbourhood than they were before. And it's a similar story to what you're talking about. More people in parks, more people doing that kind of thing. And I can only hope that both from a sort of a movement, physical well-being point of view, also from an emotional point of view, an emotional perspective, and forming personal connections at that community level. I think there's a lot of value in that. So I personally certainly hope that continues. It's interesting as I'm hearing you talk about the, you've spoken about the your role as a lawyer and the things that you look for there, that human connection. You're talking about your training structure and what that's going to look like, and this underlying impact of what technology is enabling us to do, which this pandemic has accelerated. It's like it is saying more focus on those core important things, and allowing this other infrastructure to handle things that you wouldn't otherwise have to handle. So it's a quality over quantity evolution. I hope. I hope that's what comes of it.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think the ability to decentralize has been shown that can work, that not everyone has to get in a car, in a bus, and head into a central location to complete work. I think what this has shown is that people can work from different locations, allowing that time saving, and that's, you know, for some people that could be an hour each way a day. Now, what can you do with that hour? Well, you can go for a walk.
Yep.
You can spend time on whatever a goal. You could learn to play the piano. You can learn another language. You can use that time for other endeavors to be a better you, as corny as that sounds. But that's potentially an advantage as well, is that yes, technology can assist. We have just grown up with, well, you have to work in the city because that's where people work. And that's a changing space. And this, like you say, may have accelerated that.
Yeah, I think if, you know, looking at from a commercial real estate perspective, one thing, you know, because in doing this business that I've got at the moment, I've spent time working locally. I've taken an office in a local office precinct, and I've always found it disappointing that they're really quite tired. You know, there's a lot of vacancy, not a lot of vibrancy or energy there. I think it would be a really great thing for Brisbane and all cities to have more people operating in their local neighbourhood and interacting with people in the neighbourhood, making them more vibrant businesses, more sustainable. I think that's a great thing for, you know, for the city as a whole to be able to sort of bolster the areas outside of the city during the day. So I hope we see a bit more of that. Tim, I'm conscious we're coming up sort of pretty close to an hour, which is normally where we like to wrap up. And I think we're coming to a nice end here, covering most of the things that you and I discussed before. You had mentioned, and I had touched on it earlier, some pretty, as you've described, big, hairy, audacious goals for yourself personally in the future. What are they? What are you hoping to do over the next year or two?
Yeah, I suppose the big, hairy, and audacious goal, the BHAG, if you will, that I have is to be the fifth person and hopefully the fastest person ever to run around the globe. So that's a journey of about 26,500 kilometers. So that is what's driving me. That is what I'm training for at this point in time. This pandemic has come at either a really, really, really opportunistic time or a really, really, really bad time. I'm not quite sure yet. I'm hoping to kick this off sometime next year. I did have a start date in mind, but that may be in a little bit of turmoil. So yeah, so the goal is to set out on foot and run 26,500 kilometers around the globe, of which there are certain rules. I have to hit a certain number of continents. I have to start on those continents in certain places. I have to make sure I pass every line of longitude in one direction. So the plan is to do it in about 450 to 500 days, averaging around 55 to 60 kilometers a day.
Wow, that's impressive. What kind of support structure do you need to put in place to be able to do that?
Yeah, so when I first tabled the idea to a couple of my friends, my initial intent was just to put a backpack on and go and see the world.
Yep.
And that was it. I would just have, and if I needed something, I would just buy it in the next shop I got to. But as it grew and as the logistics became, well, my naivety and ignorance probably diminished. Logistics became far more important. So at this point in time, I'm looking at having a vehicle with me, so a camper van with me the entire way, so which will be manned by one or two crew at any given time.
And are people putting their hand up for that?
People have, yeah, it's been amazing. One thing I really focus on, especially in and around Own Your Own show, is that surround yourself with positive people. And what I have felt is that the people I talk to in the circle that I've created over the last sort of decade is there's nothing around, oh, that's silly, don't do that, or they say it from a place of, Timbo, we actually care about you. What could this mean to you physically? Yep. But for the most part, it's let's do it. This is awesome. How can I help? What can I do? Where can I be? What do you need from me? So there's been no shortage of people volunteering time or expertise to help me pull it all together.
Yep.
And because I've been lucky enough to race around the world, I've got people around the globe that have reached out and said, if you need someone to drive the car through downtown Buenos Aires,
yes,
I'm your person.
Yep.
So that's, it's been, so it's going to be a process, but I'm excited by it.
Yeah, I just the mind boggles as I sit and try and process what you're undertaking. I can certainly see that, it is the kind of thing that people would get around. So you're talking in terms sort of a crowd-funded support effort in terms of people in different parts of the world sort of coming and being your support crew as you go, which I think would be awesome. What about corporate support? Is that something you're going to chase? Like, is there something, this very positive message that you bring, first and foremost by your actions? I can see that both for you amplifying that message even more, but also, for a corporate to piggyback their brand on such a positive activity. Is that possible as well, or that's not something you're chasing?
Absolutely, it's absolutely any support that I can get. Yeah, absolutely. If I can get a like-minded corporate entity on board, then that is absolutely something I'm chasing. But in any event, I have worked out, hopefully, that it can be self-funded, where me doing it is not reliant on a corporate partner. But if I do, and if that is the way, and that is absolutely the way I'd love to go, I'd love to get a corporate partner, because then it can open doors and touch more people, and people can embrace what it is that if an ordinary bloke from Brisbane can take on this, then geez, I can do anything. And that is the premise. And that is, I used to play, even if it was, I used to play tennis at school, and I haven't played tennis for 35 years because I've made every excuse under the sun. I'm going to go hit a tennis ball because this bloke can do this.
Yep.
I'm going to go have a game of tennis. Job done. That is the premise of this run. And especially coming out, and that's why I say it's either really good or really bad timing, is opportunistically, I come off the back of a pandemic when people are a little bit fearful. Well, let's rock and roll. Let's move again. Let's go. Because we don't know what's around the corner. No. We don't know how long we've got left. We don't know what could happen.
Yeah, it's bad timing in some respects, but it's actually quite good timing in other respects. I think it's really exciting, Tim. I wish you all the best, and I hope I can can continue to hear about how these plans are evolving. So I think it's super exciting. We might call it there, Tim. I've really enjoyed this chat. Thanks for taking the time. If anyone's lurking in the live stream and they wanted to throw a question Tim's way, please do so now, because we'll wrap in a second. Tim, what's just very quickly, while we're giving people a second to sort of catch that on the stream and perhaps throw something in the comments, what does your training regime look like for an event like that?
Really good question. At the moment, it's just getting some time on my legs. So it's nothing. It's a lot of long and slow. I don't run a lot fast or high intensity, because for me the focus is on getting up tomorrow and being able to go again.
Yep.
And it's just that repetition, and it's the outside stuff like the rest, the recovery. Am I eating right? Am I looking after myself? Massage, that sort of stuff's more important than the running itself, because the running's just going to happen. If I have to run 400 days at 60 Ks a day, my body is going to get used to it.
Yep.
So and mental preparation as well. And because I love it, that's what people always say. Why is it? How can you do it? Well, I love it. I love being fit. I love being outside. And when you run past someone and you smile at them and they smile back, because they know exactly what you're feeling, because they're doing the same thing. So, yeah, good question. I don't probably have an answer at this point in time. I'm just out running.
Yeah, it sounds like you you get match fit when you start playing the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Sounds good, Tim. It's been great. Really appreciate your time. Thanks everyone for jumping on the live stream. If you want to give us some feedback now or after the fact about how that went, we'd love to hear from you. So thanks very much, and have a good night.